First of all, in a very short manner, Festo is a family-owned company. The family already contains roughly 16,000 people worldwide. We are located in the core of Europe, but also we have a strong presence already in Asia. And if we take one more detail, you can see China was founded in '93, but for example Hong Kong is already plenty of years a subsidiary from Festo, and also Chinese-speaking countries like Taiwan. We have a long years experience in these markets. When we go for a global business, there's also something specific. Festo always tries to have sales engineers with a high technical competence and also a high application competence to understand the customer needs and to apply the best solutions to them. And we try to bring this specific industrial expertise to all the countries we have business with. And that already adapts a little bit what we have heard earlier in the morning, that the relation is important in China, and this also applies for these more complex technical products and solutions. And these systems, these specialists are there, and also in China we already have hundreds of people, engineers advising and giving support to our products and solutions. And also, in addition to that, we try to establish local factories to produce products and to modify them to the local markets, at least to the very big markets in the world. This applies to the US or to Brazil as well as to India, or in this case to China. You may know Festo as a product-oriented company, which is true. We had been product-oriented since we produce factory automation products. You see here a few examples. We're supporting the drive level with motion control products, electric drives, 7 pneumatic drives, also standard pneumatic drives, of course, the grippers. But we also developed ourselves to the sensor business, to the control level, at least for sub-system control inside machines. And we add, of course, what is necessary to do a full automation, human-machine interfaces, as you can see here. This we do for factory automation, and since a couple of years we also establish this know-how for process automation. Then you have different sensors, you have different actuators in the field, of course, but the control equipment is similar at least, and in this case we also provide full cabinet for solutions, for example, to our customers. This is the business environment of Festo of today. I already mentioned we are a family-owned company, and if you are a family-owned company, some things are similar, some things can be different. One thing that is different is that a family-owned company has the capability to engage himself in a long-term perspective. And this is, I come back to Lutz and his presentation, for Chinese people, it is interesting, a cooperation, a long-term oriented perspective in doing business with somebody you trust to. You need time for developing trust, and therefore this being independent from shareholder value each quarter helps us to generate these relations with our customers, and it helps us also to do things different in marketing, for example in branding. We will see that later on. You can catch that Festo is busy since 1925. We started the automation business in the 50s. We already started doing our first national and international companies those days. And today we are really the largest company in offering these mechatronic motion solution systems. Now, how does the knowledge come to the customer, to the new markets? Of course, there are some things traditional, like trade fairs. We have info shows. We do presentations and workshops with the customers. We have several trucks and minivans where we go to the customer site and show them the solutions and try to pass on our know-how. So this is the part which might be similar in your countries and companies as well. But there is an additional idea, and one of the very first ideas was, if there is a complex technology which is not that easy to be understood by everybody, it might be worth training the people in this technology on a very broad manner and a very broad scale. Therefore, Festo founded the so-called Festo Didactic business unit, which is doing this global education to students, to pupils, to people in the business environment. We are giving training and consulting lessons. And this was a core success factor in the past of Festo, that in each country where we entered new into the market, it could happen that you start with MRO business, helping selling spare parts to machine builders coming from Europe to these countries. But on the other hand, we had been able to establish educational programs together with the government, and then you have a different approach to a market. You start building up networks, and in all these network-oriented cultures, this is a good idea of approaching a market and sorting things out and become a well-known brand, at least for the students. And if they have the knowledge, if they are acquainted with your brand, they may later on perhaps decide, okay, there was something which I already know from school, and I will take this equipment later on as well. But there's something specific, and now I'm starting with the point of the things Festo is doing different as a family-owned company, because one of our owners, he came across with the idea learning from nature and doing that in a professional manner. And he founded 20 years ago this bionic learning network. And I want to dig a little bit into that. What is bionics, at least? What are the future concepts, which is the second pillar in this innovation field of Festo? What can we learn from that? Or is it just only PR? And how can we prove success, being successful with these activities? So first of all, if you go to fairs, usually these bionic learning network exhibits are everywhere in the news channels. Now these are German news channels, most of them at least. And if we have visitors with the Chancellor, if Merkel comes with a Chinese delegation or with a Russian delegation or with an Indian delegation to Hanover Fair, they usually always visit the Festo booth because these bionic birds and dragons and what else is flying or swimming, penguins and so on, is really attractive to them. They get the promotion and we benefit from that, of course, as well. But it's not only Germany and the Hanover Fair, it is also international news channels that are highly attracted by these bionic topics. And it doesn't matter whether it's CNN or BBC. We have hundreds of newspaper articles after the Hanover Fair, and also a lot of television shows are coming. But still the question remains, is it just PR, or is it really something that is related to our everyday business? So going back one step, what is bionics all about? For us, it's a learning network. We are doing usually cooperations with well-known universities, but also institutes or specialized development companies. And we always try to figure out principles from nature and how they can be adapted to build either bionic things like birds or fish or what else, and what of these learnings can be adapted to industrial products. Now, usually nature takes thousands of years or millions of years to optimize systems. We try to be at least a little bit quicker to do our application to everyday business. Now, from the last couple of years, there are a few examples. The aqua jellies, this was artificial autonomous jellyfish in water, but also in the air. And they had already some swarm behavior, so we tried to understand the communication concept of these swarm behavior and to build it into electronic circuits so that these swim together without any collision. A few years later with SmartBird, we tried to decipher the bird's flight. It was always a big obstacle to the human for over 100 years to get these wings moving and flapping so that it can really fly autonomous. It was always a mechanical problem. And we'd been able to analyze that and to solve that. And then it was the appearance of the first autonomous bird robot flying. And I can show you a few things in one of the films, just to give you a little bit an impression for those who have not seen it on our homepage so far or of one of the exhibitions. Now the question is, after all the PR show outside, what are the learning lessons from nature in this case here? I want to give you a few examples. I think energy efficiency is the most important headline overall, because saving weight, coming to lightweight structures is something important as soon as you want to have a flying model somewhere. But there are more learnings which we can take from nature. For example, if fish or penguin go up and down inside the water, you need pressure compensation to balance 500 meter, 1000 meter, or even more in depth. This pressure compensation is something that relates to our core business in the pneumatics. If you want to build pressure regulating valves, you can take the same knowledge, the same precision mechanisms for regulators, and bring this also into the products. The weight saving we already mentioned. If you build handling systems, you need energy to move them around. If you save weight there, it saves energy to the end users over the operating time of their handling systems. And flow optimization was really strongly needed with SmartBird to optimize the wings to come to an overall efficiency from beginning 30% to over 85% with the wing structure. And we use the same knowledge to optimize valves inside. You don't see that from the outside, but from the inside, I can show you later on. I already mentioned the Dragon. And if you take a typical handling system, XY gantry, you have maximum 4 degrees of freedom if you take just an easy formula to make it clear. If you take a robot with 6 axes, you already have to manage 64 potential sources of movement and make sure you have no conflict in the movement. If the Dragon has 13 axes or motors inside, you have to manage above 8,000, which gives you an indication how complex motion control tasks in the bionic, in the nature are, and are managed in a very, very professional way, and how complicated it is to build that into a chip or into any PCB board, to get that managed. And it was also partly hardware related, similar to your approach inside the chip, and it's not all done by software. Here you see the learnings from the flow control. We have a virtual reality laboratory in our headquarters, and there we optimize the SmartBird, but there we also optimize standard valves. And so we are able, for example, to improve flow rates of valves, even if they fit to a standardized format, outside format, by up to 30%. Summarizing that, the learning steps are usually take an example from nature, muscles, fins, or trunks. Try to figure out the basic technical principle behind it, and then try to adapt it, either to a bionic model or to an industrial application. And here the time delay between the first idea, the first deviation from nature, to an industrial product is very different. From the bird's flight, I think we will not see any objects flying through the fabrication hall tomorrow that early, but other things like the elephant trunk or these soft grippers, these fin grippers, these are already standard products, the grippers in the Festo range. So in some areas we learn within 2 or 3 years and get that to an industrial product. In others, it's really an early, very early study program, and we still do not know when it applies in industrial reality. But anyway, it's fascinating. And you will see it's fascinating in Europe, and it's also fascinating people in China. This is the message of the day. We have a second area where we invest money, and this is the so-called future concepts. Future concepts are much more related to technical needs. They are more using technical everyday products inside, but they all have a vision we want to share. And there, over the last 2 years, we made several very, very interesting projects. The first one on the upper right corner is the so-called Exo Hand. This is a glove with a robot hand on it, and you can wear this glove and modify a robot. You can have interaction with the robot, and there's a force feedback inside. So if the robot grips something, you feel in your hand, in your glove, the force of the robot. And if he touches a glass or a raw egg, you can say, okay, stop, 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 stop. It will break soon. It's my experience. The robot doesn't know, but he can learn together with you, and you transfer your knowledge just by this interaction of force feedback. 1 year later, we had the so-called Cogni game. This was the first time we used a brain-computer interface to control an electrical axis and to move an electrical axis left and right. An I/O platform which integrated control technology, in this case it's codices, and it can be then interlinked to any industrial protocol, for example to CC-Link. And then you have one platform to operate electrical axis actuators, pneumatic or semi-pneumatic actuators, fluid muscles, and many, many others. To attach camera systems, vision systems, to modify such complex automation tasks of today, but also in these future concepts of the scenarios, perhaps of tomorrow. What about the feedback? Now we're back to China. We took these future concepts and these bionic objects, for example, to the PTC to Shanghai. And you see in the picture there are many Chinese visitors on the booth. And when China was the partner country of Hanover Fair, we had Chinese ministers on our booth, and they had been highly impressed. So you see, from the qualitative aspect, it also works in China to create brand awareness with future concepts and bionic learning networks. You can also measure your success on internet, for example, with download statistics. The traffic increases by 100% as soon as we launch new bionic projects. It sometimes increases 8 times if we have interesting projects online. And on our YouTube channel, up to now, we have already 7 million visitors there looking to these bionic films. This is the bionic stuff. Now coming back to CC-Link and our engagement with CC-Link in the Asian area. We started more than 10 years ago implementing CC-Link to some of our products. At the very beginning we used the more easy products, the compact valve terminals. Then we continued with the more complex products and more expensive products. And this year we will start to implement version 2 of the CC-Link protocol into our products. And if you take a look how successful we are with these in the markets, especially in China, we will see a difference between these easygoing products and the more complex technology. Here you see, for example, the CPV valve terminals, and it was sold in China quite well. The colors are perhaps a little bit too small to read. The biggest part in the pie chart is the Chinese market share of these products, and you see it's close to 75%. This was a really successful product in China, and CC-Link implementation helped us a lot to get the foot into the Chinese market. If we take as a comparison these complex products, we see that the Chinese market share is pretty slow. Here light blue indicates Korea, and the green is China. It's more or less 5%, at least the last year's figures. That indicates that the complex installation-saving products are for the moment not that much attractive to Chinese companies, as labor is for the moment still relatively low, so you cannot argue saving labor costs that much. It will change, we have heard in the morning, at least in the region of Shanghai. But if you go outside of nowhere in China, the labor cost is still relatively low compared to Europe. So these complex products are not to the same degree beneficial to the Chinese than to European-based companies. This is what we can see in our sales figures and market shares as well. The easy, simple products, they do. And the more complex, at least need more time in China to find their customers. We will develop new products, of course. We are doing that now. And therefore, we think we also can help the CC Link organization to improve the worldwide presence. And we also hope to benefit from your engagement in China and in other Asian countries to be successful there. So my summary is that the local presence in China for each country, for each company is important to be successful there, at least if you want to sell high-tech products which need the long-term relation to the customers. The brand awareness is important. It's not only a good product which sells on its own. You need a good brand recognition, even if you want to sell outside of MRO business. And the way of using bionics can be really successfully used and leveraged in China. The same applies to the future concepts. So these are nice ideas. The education program, we think, is also a core success factor for long-term successful relationships in China. Premium pricing, I mentioned that, is still a challenge for the moment, as well as the protection of intellectual property. And CC Link is an important protocol there. So that's, for us, the final message.